From Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, United Launch Alliance presents live Atlas V launch coverage. At Space Launch Complex 3, the Atlas V rocket is fueled and ready to launch the NRO L-35 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office.
Range go for launch. Roger, go for launch.
T-minus 3, 2, 1.
Atlas engine ignition.
Liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy.
Good evening, I'm Matt Donovan and thank you for joining us this evening. We are currently on track for a planned liftoff at 7:14 p.m. Pacific time this evening. We're currently at T-minus 4 minutes and holding in a planned 20-minute hold. This hold allows launch conductor Mark Levesque and his team the opportunity to provide system readiness as well as go through final checks of the system and preparing us for tonight's terminal count. At the request of our customer, we are going to be concluding tonight's live coverage following confirmation of payload fairing jettison, which is scheduled to occur approximately 3.5 minutes after liftoff. I will be joined at that time by Chuck Schmitzer of Aerojet Rocketdyne, however, to discuss tonight's first use of the RL-10C engine on the Centaur second stage. We recently received a final weather briefing from the 30th Space Wing's weather officer. The weather is currently within the launch commit criteria for this evening's liftoff. Our probability of violating launch constraints is currently 70%. Ground winds are 12 to 18 knots with a direction coming from the northwest. Our temperature is 56 degrees Fahrenheit. So we are proceeding towards liftoff with a planned T0 of 7:14 p.m. Pacific time. This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. While final preparations for launch continue, here's a preview of what you'll see tonight.
The following profile details the important events of this mission using approximate times.
5, 4, 3, 2, well, you have RD-180 ignition and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket.
The Atlas RD-180 main engine and 4 solid rocket boosters ignite to lift the vehicle away from the pad. Shortly after liftoff, Atlas begins its initial pitch, yaw, and roll maneuvers to attain the proper ascent profile and minimize aerodynamic loads. At 34 seconds, the vehicle reaches Mach 1, the speed of sound. The solid rocket boosters burn out at 1 minute 35 seconds. At 1 minute 48 seconds, the first 2 SRBs are jettisoned, followed by jettison of the third and fourth SRBs a second and a half later. Approaching payload fairing jettison, the Atlas V is burning propellant at a rate of more than 1,650 pounds per second, more than 75 miles in altitude, 135 miles downrange, and traveling at a speed of more than 8,100 miles per hour. The payload fairing is jettisoned at 3 minutes 23 seconds.
United Launch Alliance is using the Atlas V 541 configuration to launch NRO L-35. This is the most powerful Atlas configuration to launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base. The Atlas V launch vehicle is produced in Decatur, Alabama and Harlingen, Texas. It is comprised of a common core booster powered by the NPO Energomash RD-180 engine, 4 Aerojet Rocketdyne solid rocket boosters, and the Centaur second stage powered by the Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10C engine. This is the first use of the RL-10C engine, which we'll learn more about later in the show tonight. Today's launch countdown began with the roll of the Mobile Service Tower, or MST. I had the opportunity to attend the roll of the tower, but before we see that, let's take a look at some of the other important events leading to tonight's launch. The NRO L-35 payload is protected during ascent by the Ruag-built 5-meter diameter payload fairing. On November 22nd, the encapsulated payload fairing was transported to Space Launch Complex 3 and mated to the Atlas V launch vehicle. This activity completes the stack and is the last major processing milestone before launch. Behind me at Space Launch Complex 3 at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California is the United Launch Alliance Atlas V in the 541 configuration. In more than 50 years of launching from Vandenberg, this is the most powerful Atlas yet. About 4.5 hours before launch, roll of the Mobile Service Tower begins at Space Launch Complex 3. The MST is moved about 250 feet southeast of the launch vehicle. It takes approximately 20 minutes to move the 11 million pound Mobile Service Tower into the park position. The Atlas V launch vehicle behind me stands 196 feet tall, or almost 20 stories, and will weigh more than 1 million pounds when fully fueled. The RD-180 and 4 solid rocket boosters will provide us with almost 2 million pounds of thrust to lift the vehicle away from the launch pad. With the MST in the park position, the operations team is completing final activities, and once they clear the pad, the Atlas V will be fueled and configured for launch. This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. Tonight's flight will deliver the NRO L-35 payload to orbit. The NRO is a joint organization engaged in the research and development, acquisition, launch, and operation of innovative overhead reconnaissance systems necessary to meet the needs of the intelligence community and the Department of Defense. The NRO is recognized for its transformational intelligence collection systems that are used to develop highly accurate military targeting data, support international peacekeeping and humanitarian relief operations, and to assess the impact of natural disasters. Let's take a look at ULA's support to the NRO's mission.
The NROL-21 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office was ULA's first launch, occurring just 2 weeks after formation in 2006. Since then, ULA has launched 8 other NRO missions from California's Vandenberg Air Force Base, including 2 on ULA's largest vehicle and the largest vehicle to launch from Vandenberg, the Delta IV Heavy. ULA has also launched 9 missions for the NRO from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida, 4 on the Delta IV launch vehicle, and 5 on the Atlas V.
And liftoff of the Atlas V rocket.
United Launch Alliance is honored to partner with the NRO to deliver vital national security missions to orbit.
Today's launch is dedicated to John James "Jack" Stewart. Jack was a highly respected engineer that dedicated more than 36 years to supporting the NRO. During his career, he provided structural engineering support to the Titan missile program, transitioning to Atlas V and culminating in 15 years of consultant support to the NRO's Office of Space Launch Mission Assurance Team. In total, Jack supported over 35 launches, including 24 for the NRO. As a member of the Mission Assurance Team, he reviewed critical launch vehicle hardware and identified elevated risks, allowing for appropriate mitigations to occur and ensuring the success of each mission he supported. Jack was a kind, considerate, and generous person who will be deeply and sincerely missed by his friends and family.
LC, the CRCN1.
Go ahead.
Roger, new T003:19:00 has been coordinated.
Roger, all stations be advised the current T0 illustrated on the countdown L time and T time clocks are valid and approved. New T0 is 0319 Zulu.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We've just updated our planned liftoff time to 19 minutes past the hour, 7:19 p.m. Pacific time. That new T0 has been coordinated through the range, and the team is now planning towards that new liftoff time. This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. As we mentioned just a moment ago, our new planned T0 time is 7:19 p.m. Pacific time this evening. Earlier in the broadcast, we went over the results from our weather briefing and discussed our probability of violation. For those that may not be familiar with the criteria that are used to evaluate the conditions for the range for launch, we did want to cover what those 8 primary criteria are that are used to generate that probability of violation. We have a team working with the Western Range here that reviews probability of lightning, looking at cumulus clouds, looking at anvil clouds and debris clouds, looking at thick cloud layers and smoke plumes, as well as disturbed weather and launch visibility in the area near the launch. And as they evaluate all those to ensure that the vehicle flight is going to be safe through the atmosphere on our way to space, they look at whether or not we're going to violate any predetermined rules that set constraints on those conditions. And as they've gone through and established that 70% probability of violation, that's based on looking at our window today and trying as best they can to predict the weather. So right now we remain at that 70% probability of violation. However, their evaluation at this time indicates that all 8 of those criteria are green and ready for launch. So we'll continue to monitor those here over the next several minutes as we proceed towards coming out of the terminal count and then again towards T0. This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We remained in the planned built-in hold as preparations for the launch continue. In a few moments, launch conductor Mark Levesque will pull the launch team for the final go to pick up the countdown. 27 engineers and managers will be pulled for system status and readiness to proceed with the launch. This is the final status check before launch for all Atlas vehicle systems, ground systems, payload, and the U.S. Air Force Western Range. The readiness poll includes hydraulics, pad water deluge system, electrical systems, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Mark Levesque performs the final polling of the launch team.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulics.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Center systems, propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Has gas.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
Instrumentation.
Go.
COM.
Go.
Timer.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
Ulate safety officer.
Go.
VSC.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer. Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. E0 is planned for 03:19 Zulu. The count to start 03:15 Zulu.
Roger. T0 is set for 03:19:00. Count will start at 03:15:00 Zulu.
Polling is complete and the launch team has given the go for launch. The countdown will resume approximately 1.5 minutes from now. From T-minus 4 minutes until launch, you will be listening to launch conductor Mark Levesque and his team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure. At T-minus 3 minutes, the team will secure Atlas LO2 topping. At T-minus 2 minutes, the team will transfer the Atlas and Centaur stages from ground facility power to internal battery power. At T-minus 1 minute 55 seconds, the team will command the launch sequencer to start, followed shortly by securing the Centaur LH2 and LO2 topping activity. At T-minus 1 minute 40 seconds, the team will command the flight control system to launch enable and arm the flight termination system. At T-minus 40 seconds, the Atlas tanks will be verified at flight pressures, followed by verification of the Centaur tank pressures at T-minus 30 seconds. A final status check of Atlas, Centaur, and NROL 35 readiness is conducted at T-minus 25 seconds. At T-minus 3 seconds, the RD-180 main engine will roar to life, and the 4 solid rocket boosters ignite to lift the vehicle off the pad at liftoff. Later in the broadcast, you'll be hearing the voice of Marty Malinowski as he provides us with launch vehicle ascent data.
On my mark, the time will be T-minus 4 minutes and counting. 3, 2, 1, mark. .355.
Ground power is enabled.
The countdown clock has resumed and we are go for launch.
.3 minutes.
Securing LO2 topping.
Atlas tanks to flight pressure.
250.
FTS internal.
Vehicle internal.
155.
Launch sequencer start.
150.
Securing Centaur LH2. Securing Centaur LO2.
140.
Launch enabled.
137.
FTS armed.
T-minus 90 seconds. The launch vehicle, payload, ground systems, and western range are go for launch.
120.
Target's armed.
FCS count started.
115.
Produce CCS for launch.
Roger. 110.
Vent valves locked.
T-minus 1 minute.
Report range status.
Rock, range is green.
Roger.
Stable at step 3.
T-minus 30 seconds.
ECS reduced for launch.
Roger.
28. 25.
Status check.
Go Atlas. Go Centaur.
Go L35.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We have RD-180 ignition, and we have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrying the NRO L35 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office.
Use gonna close it to control. Program's complete.
You're hearing the voice of Marty Malinowski providing launch vehicle ascent data.
Performing well. And boosters throttled back. Roll program's complete. Mach 1. SRB chamber pressures are rolling off, almost plateaued. Max Q, body rates look good. Boosters throttled back up. Engine response looks good. SRB chamber pressures have plateaued. Vehicle body rates look good. RD-180 pump pressures, injector pressures are within band for the set MR. SRB chamber pressures are stable and plateaued. Body rates look good. Coming up on SRB burnout. And chamber pressures are rolling off. Vehicle is now at 50% its liftoff weight. RD-180 still performing well. Coming up on SRB jettison. And we have indication of all 4 solids jettisoning. Closed loop steering has been enabled. Booster throttle down, right on schedule. And we are on our solar roll. All systems looking very good. Cue off of steering has been completed. And the solar roll has completed. Vehicle controlling right down the middle. Current altitude is 52 miles, downrange distance 81 miles, current velocity 5,638 miles per hour. RCS pyro valve has been fired. System's now pressurizing to flight levels. RD-180 continues to perform well, pump speeds within band. Body rates look good. And we have fired the AIB ordnance. Coming up on a payload for jettison. And we have payload for jettison. And we have jettisoned the CFR deck as well.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T+3 minutes, 44 seconds into tonight's mission. You've just seen the successful liftoff of the Atlas V carrying the NRO L-35 payload for the National Reconnaissance Office. As I mentioned earlier, tonight's mission is the first flight of the Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10C engine on the Centaur second stage, and I'm now joined by Chuck Schmitzer from Aerojet Rocketdyne. Chuck, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Matt. I was really excited about being here, and it's an honor to support this important mission.
So we're talking about the RL-10, which has been a workhorse in America's space program for decades. Can you tell us a little bit more about the RL-10 and the evolution to the RL-10C?
Well, the key to the RL-10 is its ability to harness the power of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. That's what allows us to generate the performance needed. It also has the capability for multiple relights in space, which provides flexibility and precision in placing these payloads into the needed orbit. And it has done that over and over again for the last 50 years. In fact, tonight's mission marks the 455th RL-10 engine to fly in space.
Chuck, that's an amazing history for the RL-10, and obviously there's a lot that goes into being able to produce an engine with that kind of capability and then the evolution to the RL-10C. What else can you tell us about the RL-10 and what's gotten us here today?
Well, the history of the RL-10 goes back 50 years. It spans 5 decades. My involvement personally with the RL-10 program started with a Titan Centaur mission, TC-19. I got to support that up at the Cape, and after that I was hooked on the rocket business. So, Matt, I brought along a video that has some of the history of the RL-10 and also history of the RL-10C.
So great. Thanks, Chuck. Let's go ahead and take a look at that video.
The Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10 is the highest performing cryogenic upper stage engine in the world. It is designed, developed, built, and tested by a group of highly skilled men and women working in West Palm Beach, Florida. Over the past 5 decades, the RL-10 engine family has helped place numerous weather and communication satellites into orbit and has helped deliver scientific payloads to nearly every planet in the solar system.
The RL-10 family of engines has powered a variety of different launch vehicles, such as the Saturn, Titan, Atlas, and Delta,
as well as the Voyager space probe, which has now reached interstellar space. Today's launch of the Atlas V, carrying the NROL-35 payload to orbit for the National Reconnaissance Office, will mark the first flight of a brand new model of RL-10 engine, known as the RL-10C-1.
Well, we've been preparing for this first mission for about 4 years now. The RL-10C-1 is a new RL-10 engine model. It's the latest engine model of the RL-10, and we've been designing, developing, and qualifying it. It's been about a 4-year program.
The RL-10C1 is the first step to develop a common core engine with a C1 flying on Atlas and using the same core engine to have a C2 version that will fly on Delta. One of the advantages is simple. We don't have 2 production lines anymore. We'll simply have 1, and then we'll kit the engines to either fly on Atlas or Delta, and that drives a lot of cost out of the process.
This new engine combines the best attributes of the RL-10A-4-2 engine model, developed for use with the Centaur upper stage of the Atlas V launch vehicle. and the RL-10B-2, which is currently used on the second stage of the Delta IV launch vehicle.
The RL-10C1 is really a combination of the best attributes of the RL-10A42, the engine that was currently flying on Atlas, and the RL-10B2, which is the engine that currently flies on Delta upper stages, and flew and powered the EFT-1, the first Orion test flight last week. So what we've done is we've combined all the best attributes of both of those engine models and combined those into one new core engine model that can then be used as a core engine to fly on either Atlas or Delta.
The RL-10C-1 flying aboard today's mission incorporates new and upgraded technologies that improve the durability and performance of the engine, while providing additional thrust for the Centaur upper stage.
The new technology on the RL-10C1 engine includes an improved dual direct spark ignition system that lights on the first spark in all of our test programs. It's just an excellent new ignition system, and also improved turbo machinery. So we have improved critical speed margins, and we also have improved pumping performance on our turbo pumps.
The RL-10 is an incredible engine. It is extremely lightweight. It has the highest performance of any upper stage engine in operation in the world, and it is reignitable in space, which is a big deal for mission flexibility.
Aerojet Rocketdyne is proud to support our partners at United Launch Alliance as we work to deliver affordable launch services that enable agencies like the National Reconnaissance Office to fulfill their mission to keep our nation safe.
So Chuck, thanks for bringing that to share with us and to share that with our viewers. Can you share a little bit more from your perspective about what the RL-10C means to Aerojet Rocketdyne, to ULA, and to our customers?
Yeah, Matt, I can. The RL-10C brings the best combination of our assets, our capability, and our performance, and delivers that to our customer. It's our first step towards commonality, and it's part of our continuous drive towards affordability for our customer. So I got a little bit of trivia for you, Matt. We've got an RL-10 logo that we like to use. If you look in the background of that logo, we've had 11 stars. So after the first flight of the RL-10C this evening, we get to add our 12th star to that logo.
That's really exciting, Chuck, just talking about that long legacy and continuing it now with the RL-10C in this first flight. So what's next for the RL-10?
Well, Matt, we can't rest. We've got derivatives of the C engine already under development. Key to that is the incorporation of more modern manufacturing techniques. One technique that we're really excited about is the introduction of additive manufacturing for the RL-10 components. That's going to be key to ensuring the future for that program.
Well, Chuck, I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us about the RL-10, the legacy, and then evolving it into the future and supporting the critical missions that we have. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks, Matt. I appreciated you inviting me.
For those watching the broadcast, again, at the request of our customer, we are going to conclude our live coverage tonight. We will leave you with one more look at the liftoff of the Atlas V carrying the NRO L-35 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office. You can find out more about United Launch Alliance at our website, www.ulalaunch.com, or join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter. I'd like to thank Marty Malinowski for his support of tonight's broadcast, as well as Chuck Schmitzer from Aerojet Rocketdyne. I'm Matt Donovan, and on behalf of the entire launch team, thank you so much and have a great evening. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We have RD-180 ignition, and we have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrying the NRO L-35 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office. Ground winds are 12 to 18 knots with a direction coming from the northwest. Our temperature is 56 degrees Fahrenheit. So we are proceeding towards liftoff with a planned T0 of 7:14 p.m. Pacific time. This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. While final preparations for launch continue, here's a preview of what you'll see tonight.
The following profile details the important events of this mission using approximate times.
5, 4, 3, 2, well, you have RD-180 ignition and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket.
The Atlas RD-180 main engine and 4 solid rocket boosters ignite to lift the vehicle away from the pad. Shortly after liftoff, Atlas begins its initial pitch, yaw, and roll maneuvers to attain the proper ascent profile and minimize aerodynamic loads. At 34 seconds, the vehicle reaches Mach 1, the speed of sound. The solid rocket boosters burn out at 1 minute 35 seconds. At 1 minute 48 seconds, the first 2 SRBs are jettisoned, followed by jettison of the third and fourth SRBs a second and a half later. Approaching payload fairing jettison, the Atlas V is burning propellant at a rate of more than 1,650 pounds per second, more than 75 miles in altitude, 100
following confirmation of payload fairing jettison, which is scheduled to occur approximately 3.5 minutes after liftoff. I will be joined at that time by Chuck Schmitzer of Aerojet Rocketdyne, however, to discuss tonight's first use of the RL-10C engine on the Centaur second stage. We recently received a final weather briefing from the 30th Space Wing's weather officer. The weather is currently within the launch commit criteria for this evening's liftoff. Our probability of violating launch constraints is currently 70%. From Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, United Launch Alliance presents live Atlas V launch coverage. At Space Launch Complex 3, the Atlas V rocket is fueled and ready to launch the NRO L-35 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office.
Range, go for launch. Roger, go for launch.
T-minus 3, 2, 1.
Atlas engine ignition.
Liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy.
Good evening, I'm Matt Donovan and thank you for joining us this evening. We are currently on track for a planned liftoff at 7:14 p.m. Pacific time this evening. We're currently at T-minus 4 minutes and holding in a planned 20-minute hold. This hold allows launch conductor Mark Levesque and his team the opportunity to provide system readiness as well as go through final checks of the system and preparing us for tonight's terminal count. At the request of our customer, we are going to be concluding tonight's live coverage
at 35 miles downrange and traveling at a speed of more than 8,100 miles per hour. The payload fairing is jettisoned at 3 minutes 23 seconds.
United Launch Alliance is using the Atlas V 541 configuration to launch NRO L-35. This is the most powerful Atlas configuration to launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base. The Atlas V launch vehicle is produced in Decatur, Alabama and Harlingen, Texas. It is comprised of a Common Core booster powered by the NPO Energomash RD-180 engine, 4 Aerojet Rocketdyne solid rocket boosters, and the Centaur second stage, powered by the Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10C engine. This is the first use of the RL-10C engine, which we'll learn more about later in the show tonight.